Today's guest is an alignment coach for female entrepreneurs, guiding them to learn how to honor their energy and truly listen to what they want instead of what they've been taught they should. She's the CEO of Works & Co., an urban branding studio, the host of a top 100 podcast, the Gutsy Podcast, which I've been a guest on before, speaker, author, and all-around visionary. This gal will be the first to push you out of your comfort zone and the last to hug you as you head to the next level of your life. And a fun fact, she had her nose pierced. I love this. She had her nose pierced 25 years ago in Hollywood, and she's kept it ever since. Welcome to the Social Sunshine Podcast, LauraAura.
Hello, my friend. Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, look at, we keep hanging out on podcasts together.
I like it. I think that, we were talking a little bit about this when you were on my show about how when you are just so authentically who you are, how that kind of puts up this beacon and it attracts like-minded people, and we connected on TikTok. And here we are just continuing to have great conversations that inspire people.
I'm so glad, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I have to, before we get going, I have to mention, I'm looking at my phone here because I'm looking at your Instagram bio. I wanted to make sure I mentioned this to you whenever we're recording. It starts off with swift kick in the mental ass. Like, yep. I love that. Like, what inspires you to put that in your bio? I love it.
If that doesn't kind of summarize everything that you need to know about me, I don't know what else to tell you. No, it's a phrase that just kind of naturally came out one day. Like, someone was talking to me about the podcast and they were like, what's it like? And I'm like, I don't know. My vibe's just like, I'm kind of like a swift kick in the mental ass followed by the best hug you've ever had. And they were like, oh, I get that. And then I was like, oh, that actually really explains who I am. Because it's always with like accountability and hold things true and strong, but with such love and support, right? Like, I think it's really, it's a two-sided of the coin. And so it's just kind of become one of my key phrases. And I'm like, well, I'm going to start my bio off with this, because if you pass that vibe check and you're like, I want more of this, then welcome. Come into my world further.
It's a match. It's a match for me. I love that. I feel like that's actually, I mean, I'm a mother, so I'm going to think of it in that way, but like, a nurturing thing in my opinion, like that approach that you're saying, like, I'll kick you in the ass, but like, I'm going to hug you too. To me, that's a very nurturing thing that I think works for a lot of people. It works for me. I love that. I want somebody to like get in here and tell me what's up and work with me and be real with me, but then also be loving. It's just the perfect combo.
That's what it's all about, right? Like, I think that we're inundated with such fluff anymore. There's so much like just this very like woo kind of talk and strategies and things, support, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, because there's a time and a place for every type, right? But part of my journey has been really learning and accepting who I am and how I best serve myself and the people in my world. And I find it's funny, the more blunt I am, the more people raise their hands and are like, you're the one. But I think that, again, that comes back so much to what we were just saying. Like, when you really embrace who you are and you put up that beacon, the right people will come to you, because there's a lot of people that I am not the right sauce for, right? And that is 1,000% okay and necessary, right? It's really all about attracting yourself and finding the people that you really align with. And I think that starts with finding what you align with internally as well.
Right. It's, God, so spot on. I agree with you 100%. And I love that with you, in my opinion, and probably anybody that's gotten to know you as well, it all flows and it matches and it makes sense and the dots are connected. And that probably took you some work like as a brand, and that's a whole other story. But I just appreciate the fact that, I see you and then I hear you and then I look at your thing and I read your thing and it all just flows and it all makes sense to me. And I can really understand who you are and like kind of what to expect, basically. So I love it. But let me ask you before we get into anything else, LauraAura, tell me.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with the name? Like, what inspired this? What's the deal?
Yeah. So a very long time ago, when I first started my business, I joined this business networking group where we met every Thursday morning. And I was in that group for like 6 years. And we would all go around the table and at the end of the session do these testimonial like comments to one another. And a lady stood up one time and she's like, Laura, I don't know what there is about you. There's just this aura, this almost like a LauraAura. And I was like, interesting. And at that time, it was so I was not ready to like embody that, right? But there was something about it so deep that I was like, put that in my pocket. We're going to nurture that. We're going to let it grow the way that it wants to. And someday this will make sense. And so when I really started to embrace myself as a speaker, as a coach, as a guide, I started to like pull that back out of my pocket. And I'm like, oh, LauraAura, like this is truly my most aligned self. This is where my energy exudes from. This is where my magic is, right? And so I look at LauraAura as a combination between what I consider the three versions of myself. So the inner little girl who's joyful and playful and loves to experience things and just like create stuff out of nothing and like just this very like adventurous little one. My higher self, who is always guiding me, right? Like this is the gal that's putting down breadcrumbs in front of me, the little whispers, the little nudges, the like, hey, let's go this direction. She is my guide. And then there's the present day human me self right now having this conversation with you. And to me, LauraAura is the embodiment of all of those pieces as one. And that's where I really feel like I make the most impact. It's where I feel the most peace in myself. And it's just honestly who I am. So LauraAura, that is me.
I love that so much. Okay. You didn't disappoint with that story. No, that's cool though too, that like you said, you put it in your pocket and you let it sit for a bit until it was time. That's pretty cool too. And that's hard to do. I mean, I feel like, it's difficult to be patient with ideas and anything, wanting results, whatever it is, right? And that's cool that you kind of nurtured that along and went, okay, I see the possibility. And then it just kind of had, like you said, now it's like it embodies all of who you are, and that's powerful. I love your spiritual nature, and that's one of the things that draws me to you. I'm sure you hear that a lot, probably, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's an energy field, it's
Yeah.
like it is easy to want to like run, right? Like, but the first time I heard that, so I've been in business for 15 years. I probably heard the phrase LauraAura 13 years ago. I just wasn't prepared, right? Like there were so many more lessons and things that I needed to learn. And I just think that that's a valuable thing to remember, that like, just because you get an idea today doesn't mean it needs to be executed today. And sometimes it really needs to be nurtured and evolved. And sometimes there are lessons that we need to learn and there's knowledge that there is to be gained. But ultimately, if it's for you, it will develop. And so it's our job as our human selves to get out of the way for a hot second and let some of those things develop on our behalf.
Right. That's that's a lesson for a gal like me. I'm an action taker. Boom, we're taking action. Boom, we're making this happen. Boom, it's up to me, and it's in general that serves me well, and just in general, but I do have to remind myself to have those moments like what you're talking about where, okay, all right, hang on, take a breath, take a beat, Brittany. Like maybe we don't need to take action on this morning.
Yes.
We can calm down a little bit.
I find too that sometimes when because I'm the same way, right? Like I can run, not physically, but I can spiritually, I can run, like task wise, I can run. But I find that sometimes that's when I get myself into a mess, right? Because I'm like prematurely running when I just needed to like sit and look at it for a second. So I've learned like especially when my whole body starts to light up and I'm like, oh, we could do this and this and this. And that comes very quickly. I've learned like, let me write it down. Let me sit in it for a little bit, right? Like just because I got the idea in this moment doesn't mean I need to like run and execute in this moment. I also found that it causes chaos in every other aspect then, right? The team is like, oh, what? And then, everyone's like, rah, and it's like, hold on a second, Laura got an idea. But I found that if I jot it down and I sit with it, it either starts to mature and gel, or it like I totally forget about it, right? Because sometimes I get these drop-in ideas that are cool, but they're not meant for me, right? They're just in and out, or it leads me to something else, right? So it's kind of a game that you play with yourself, right?
Right. I relate to that a lot, and probably my team does as well. Like you said, Laura got an idea. It's the same thing. I'll go for a walk, and it's like if I I go for a walk and then I start to message my main gals on my team, and I'm like, okay, so I'm out for a walk, and they're like, oh shit, she's out for a walk. And now
Yep.
she's voice messaging me. What kind of idea does she have? I really relate to that. But like I said, I think it's great to be an action taker because I'd rather that than the alternate, but I do have to just calm the hell down a little bit sometimes. I appreciate that lesson and always need that reminder. So, okay. So today we're talking about mastering your mind, which is something that you talk about a lot. You know that a lot of the people that listen to this because they're seeking guidance when it comes to showing up on social media. So they're like a small business owner, they're a content creator, building a brand. Maybe they've been in business for 20 years, who knows? But it's people that really are drawn to this way of putting yourself out into the world on social media and what that entails. You know all about it. You do it. I do it. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about mastering your mind in this world and how you feel about mindset when it comes to social media.
Yeah. Gosh, so many pieces of this puzzle, right? Like social media is very multifaceted, as you know, and it's a lot of it you come to this fork in the road or this pivotal moment where yes, I'm going to, or no, I'm not. And usually the yes is very like kind of sometimes kind of skittish, or we build up some courage or some energy around it. And the no is often like this kind of silent thing, like, oh, I'm just gonna clean out this closet today. And then, like it's not always like, no, I am not going to do this, Brittany. Like I am refusing to post on social this week. I am not going to plan my content. No, it's very subdued.
You're so right. Wow.
Like we distract ourselves.
Yes.
And so I think with any portion of mindset, with anything, especially even in this context of social media, is really about getting super, super aware of your thoughts and your feelings. And that's the part that we skip over, right? Like who wants to sit down and like analyze how we feel today, right? Like, but to me, it's like with every decision, with every opportunity that pops up in front of me, with every like record or not record, with every post or don't post, like sometimes it's the little micro decisions of saying yes that helps to build up the confidence and the courage. Because that's the other thing, we want to run straight to like, well, how do I get confidence? Like, where do I go buy that? You can't go to the store and buy that off a shelf. Amazon's not going to ship that shit to you, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. The confidence and the courage comes from deciding to show up, from deciding to say like, okay, I feel like maybe I'm not enough. I feel like another content creator is ahead of me. I feel like my plan is not as planned as it should be. Like we could give it 1,000 different reasons, but you know what? Today I'm going to try and I'm going to post it. Today, I'm going to actually block in an hour to schedule out content and I'm going to do it, right? And doing those things, saying yes in tiny situations enough, that's where you start to build your confidence. So we've got to be super freaking aware of what we're saying to ourselves when we're going into creating content, when we are showing up in our brands, when we're showing up in our business, right? Like, who are we being? And am I in alignment with myself? Am I in alignment with my business goals? And am I willing to give myself the opportunity to try today?
Right. I like how you first started off digging into yourself as a human, because I've said that a lot over the years, that I feel like for someone who is genuinely has this desire to show up on social media, make a good impact on the world and do all the things that come along with it, that can be absolutely incredible and life-changing. But like, I feel like those people, one, it is a commitment. It's something that, if you really want to do it, just like anything else, that's a priority to you, right? You got to commit. But I always say, like, you kind of have to like put yourself through therapy or it's kind of like therapy. If you are truly, like I'm saying, committed, really want to get in there and use social media for good and make an impact. And it's not just like, oh, let me sell you my green widgets, right? Like, it's deeper than that. And it really is. And I've learned that over the years of like, the more I've kind of dug deeper within myself and learned things really in the process, like, wait a minute, you just said that in that video, but do you really think that? I mean, and I know everybody's like, oh, great. This complicates it, Brittany. Does it have to be that deep? But I feel like it kind of organically ends up being deep and kind of like therapy? Like, am I making sense?
Totally. I'm nodding. I'm like, yep, absolutely. Because look, I always say that before you're a business owner, you're a human. And as a human, you have thoughts and ideas and past experiences and habits and beliefs and just all this stuff that makes you who you are right now in this moment. And I think sometimes people think when you start a business that like that you tuck that away and you shut the door and then you just run the business and then you go back to that. Wrong. Spoiler alert. It gets amplified, right? When you run a business, all of thatness, all of you gets amplified. And so if there are things that need to be shifted or worked on or, loved on, it's gonna show up in the business, right? Sometimes it's through the social, sometimes it's through finances, sometimes it's through your time management, sometimes it's through your relationships. I mean, everyone has their own brand and their own story, right? But it doesn't go away. It really kind of gets pushed to the forefront. And I think that honestly, I think that is probably the tipping point where people either want to keep going and do the work or decide that this is not for them, right? Because it really forces you to get to know you, right? And if you truly want to grow, if whatever your goals or your mission behind this is, it requires getting very real with yourself and getting to know yourself on a deeper level. That honestly, I think that is one of the deepest grooves of lasting success is embracing who you are in the business.
Yeah. Wow. I agree with you completely. And it's, it is complicated sometimes and it is difficult sometimes, but I mean, I feel like, I guess if it was all smooth sailing and easy peasy, everybody would be doing it. Right.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but like, what's the alternative?
Right. That's a good
I mean,
point.
what's the alternative? The alternative is to run a business, but be completely outside of your body and miserable, right? To run a business in a way that like feels hard and gnarly and unenjoyable, or go back to a standard job, which there's nothing wrong with that if that's your path. But if you're intended to be an entrepreneur and you're like, no, I'm not going to deal with that, then you're going to just go do the mundane thing, when you know that you're designed to do something different or bigger or new, right? So it's all hard. Choose the hard that gets you to where you want to be, right? Because that inner work is temporary. And yes, it shows up in different ways and different facts. It's not about achieving some level of like, oh, I've nailed it. Now it's never going to show up again. Wrong. But you're better equipped. You're stronger. You have more tools in your tool belt. Right. So you can shift through those things faster. But I always say like, let's choose the hard that's temporary that gets you to where you want to be and actually frees you from all that other stuff that keeps, dragging you down.
Right. I love that so much. I want to ask you about your opinion on, not a planned question, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but like,
yeah, let's do it.
Your opinion on, because I talk to a lot of people and hear from and just pay attention because of the industry I'm in with social media, people that are really, really hesitant to show up on social, and they don't have to be like me dancing on a treadmill being silly. Like they could be in professional mode. It doesn't matter, but they're very hesitant to show up and show their face because they have a fear of judgment from others. Many times it's fear of judgment from people in our real life, not social media life. Like, oh my God, Aunt Sally's going to see this shit and she is going to call my mom or, whatever. What are your thoughts on that, on mastering your mind when it comes to that? Because fear of judgment for people that getting on social media is freaking huge.
Oh, my friend, I think that's probably one of the top things that stop people, to be honest with you. Yeah. Is the fear of other people's thoughts, feelings, expectations. What are they going to say? What are they going to think about me? Are they going to, judge what I'm wearing today or how I do my makeup? Or, I mean, we could go on and on and on. At the end of the day, and I just want to acknowledge how incredibly powerful that can be, right? Because it can literally be the thing that stops you. And where it comes down into your mind is, what are you willing to tolerate and how much longer are you willing to put off your own success, peace, happiness, growth, financial abundance, whatever it is that you're going for? How much longer are you willing to put off all of that happiness because Aunt Sally might fucking say something to your mom? Right? Like, and I'm not downplaying how big that is in the moment, but outside of the space, if we come up, and I think that that's the thing, right? Like I'm challenging everyone listening, like come up for a second and look at this from the bird's eye view. How tiny that moment is. And while people's words have power, right? they can only continue to have power if we feed it, if we give it the power. So do you want to be happy and successful and grow your business and have the things that you're really looking for in this life? Or do you want to continue to operate under the microscope of what somebody might say? Because that's the other piece of it. It's not guaranteed somebody's going to say something. Unless, of course, you post a video on Facebook that has a lot of curse words and a lot of passion behind it. And then every white guy in America comes out to tell you how filthy you are. Hi, hello. We could talk about that if you'd
Am
like
I
to.
sensing a personal story here?
A little bit. But, it's like, why is that going to be the thing that stops you after everything that you've gone through? After all of the fire that you've walked through, after all of the figuring out, after all of the education, after all of the life experiences, why is that person's opinion the thing that stops you? And so if we can start to flip that script and come up out of it for a second and realize that people are going to say stuff no matter what you do. And so again, we might as well choose the temporary hard that gets us to where we want to be. And that means putting yourself out there. And if people don't like it, then that's going to have to be on them. We can no longer carry that ourselves as our responsibility.
Right. We as humans, I'm better at it now. I used to not, it's a process, but in general, we as humans carry that like huge. I mean, I'm speaking about social media and we're talking about business too and all that, but like just in general, being scared to be judged by others. What are they going to think of me if I do this thing, especially if it's out of the quote unquote norm or something less traditional or whatever you want to call it? Man, that is a huge like human issue that we don't have enough hours today to to conquer. But I appreciate what you said about that. What you said that really in the big picture, I'm messing up your words, but it's a small moment. It's a moment that feeling, or even if Aunt Sally does talk shit, that even that in itself is just a moment in time. It's not the whole thing, and it doesn't represent who you are and what you can or have accomplished.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes too, the reframe of like, and this is hard in the beginning, right? And I'm not perfect at this either, but the reframe of like almost having empathy for people that say shitty things. And I'm not saying to like love on them or forgive them or anything like that, but just like, if you're so willing to be the first person at the front of the line to say crappy things, I'm sorry that you're so miserable in your own self that you want to project that onto people in the internet or even the people in your life, right? Like it's so much projection. And when we can really start, again, that's when you come up out of it for a second. Cause when you're like sitting and looking at your phone and reading these people's comments and you're like, oh my gosh, like you're in the ditches of it, right? Like when we come up out, we can be like, wow, like what's going on in that person's life, right? Like, why are they so quick to put down something that I'm doing that I'm very passionate about, right? Like, and sometimes that can help to soften it when we realize that it's actually not about us. It's really a reflection of something that's going on inside of them. And so again, it's not always easy. Sometimes you want to like throw hands or like have an argument, but that doesn't serve you, right? And ultimately at the end of the day, you got to make the decision. And am I going to keep putting out the content and being who I am? Or am I going to keep getting sucked into the vortex of what these people are saying?
Right. Yeah. It's such good advice, such good words of wisdom. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you about something you talk about. And if somebody's not watching the video on YouTube, you're moving your hand, you're going raise up, you're lifting your hand as you say, come up out of it. And earlier you mentioned your highest self. Talk to me about that. Like what inspired you to, I personally am just fascinated by it and I absolutely love it. So what inspired you to learn about your highest self, get in touch with it, be inspired by it? Like for somebody out there that's intrigued, but doesn't know what that means.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. I don't know that there was anything particular that inspired me to do it. I think it's always been part of who I am. I just learned to lean into it and develop it more. So for me, like the higher self, the coming up out of it, this is the space where all the noise shuts off, right? And I think that that's what so many of us are trying to achieve, especially when we talk about mastering your mindset and showing up and all this stuff. Like we just want to quiet the noise. because we've got the voices, we've got the opinions, we've got the what ifs, we've got the this person's further along, we've got the well, their photos are better than mine, or she can dance better than me, or we've got all that's noise, right? And so to me, I look at it as like the power of the pause and the reconnect. So to me, the higher self is the reconnection. Because when all that noise is happening and you're going 100 miles an hour and you're doing 50 things at one time, you're not connected to your body. You're not connected to your mind. You're just like this vessel that's like playing this professional game of whack-a-mole, right? Like you're just doing. And so to me, when I'm talking about coming up out of it and looking at it from above or connecting to your higher self, I'm asking you to pause and get back in connection with yourself. I have a process that I like to teach. If you'd be interested, I'd be happy to share it with you. So it's called the Power Back process. It's an acronym, AURA, aura, pun fully intended. But it's a way for you to reconnect with your energy so that when something seems to be going off the rails, or you're getting, ahead of yourself, or your mind's taking over, or just like, you're just not feeling connected. This is a very simple thing that you can do in the moment. You don't need anything other than yourself and the willingness to do it. So A is awareness. Get super, super freaking aware of your thoughts, your feelings, what's happening in your body, like literally just like taking a picture of the landscape, like, oh, I'm starting to say crappy things to myself again, right? Oh, I'm starting to multitask and I've got 50 tabs open on my browser, right? Like, oh, okay, I can see it. So today we're going to choose different. So then the U is to unpack it. And this is so beautiful because it's not about judgment. It's not about fixing it, right? Especially women, we want to just go right in like, oh, okay, I'm aware of what I'm doing. Now I'm going to fix it. Stop for a second. Okay. But we're unpacking it. Where did this come from? Like, did I see something that made me want to do this? Is this an old belief that popped up? Like, did I overbook my schedule? Like, like where did this come from? That allows you then, it starts to diffuse it, right? We took something that felt really big and kind of gnarly and we're starting to diffuse it. Because then you can go into R and to reframe it. What is actually real and true? Right now we're starting to come back. You can see even and feel how we're starting to come back into our bodies. What is true? I don't need to do all this today. I can delegate this out. I'm actually super smart. I've done this before. I know how to do it, right? Like we're getting back into ourselves. And then we can take aligned action. So now we're choosing to respond differently instead of reacting and doing the whack-a-mole thing. We have literally come back into our bodies. And this is what I'm talking about, reconnection. And now we can choose to take aligned action from our centered, aligned space. And it's calmer, it's more peaceful, it's clear, the mind is more quiet, right? And this is where you make the change, right? Like this is how you change the old mindset beliefs. This is where you change the chatter and all the stuff that's going on. This process, I promise you, if you start to implement it, it will change everything for you. Because now you're reconnected. Now you're like tapping into your higher self. And now you're taking action that actually aligns and supports the greater good of what you're here to do.
Perfect. Oh my God. I'm so glad I asked you that question.
That was a great question.
That's a great answer. I appreciate that very much. I personally, selfishly am benefiting from our conversation.
Wonderful.
Especially, you're a business owner. You've always got lots of shit going on. It's so nice to have a good conversation to just, calm down and take in some good wisdom from somebody. So I really appreciate you doing that. Appreciate you being here. Before I let you go, please tell everybody how they can find you. And please go find Laura. You guys trust me. You will not be sorry. You want to go follow her and read all the things about her. So what's the best way? TikTok, Instagram, all the things?
Yeah, I am on TikTok the most. I'm at that LauraAura. But I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. Same handle. LauraAura.com, LauraAura.com is the hub for all things me, where you can find about, if you're interested in working together or just interested in learning a little bit more about what I got going on in this corner of the world. And then of course the Gutsy podcast. So if you want a little bit more infusion in your ear, I have 2 episodes that air every week. Tuesdays with a guest and Thursday are little mini power back episodes to help you take actionable shifts in your life and in your business.
How long have you been podcasting?
4.5 years.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
You got a good way about you for it. Does that make sense? We do podcast production at my company. So like I've listened to a variety of people and all the things. And so I don't know, to you, I feel like you have this like soothing, nice voice to listen to. I don't know if you ever heard that before.
I've heard it a few times, but not recently. So thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You know, when I started the show, I had no idea what I was doing. I've actually been interviewing people for 10 years. So this is, you know, when you talk about building confidence, this has just been by doing, right?
Yep.
There's no quick way to do it. You just do. But I started the podcast with a $25 headset off of Amazon and
Yep.
grew it, and it became a top 100 on that very $25 Logitech headset. And it wasn't until the day that I actually hit the charts that that microphone died. Literally the same day. And it was like, I have gotten you to this point and now you must carry forth, right? Like, I don't know, it's just like, it became like this old wise man.
I'm going to pass you off to the higher quality audio equipment.
I went to Guitar Center and upgraded my system, and here we are. So thank you. I really appreciate that beautiful feedback. I take that.
No,
take that to heart.
Yeah, everybody go listen to the Gutsy podcast. Find Laura on social media and her website. Like I said, you won't be sorry. You're so great to listen to, and you have so much wisdom to offer after all of your years in business. So thank you so much for doing this with me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I appreciate you too, my friend.